What thing have you stopped caring about that improved your life? Don't know how to put this, but I stopped putting negative energy into people I disagreed with or didn't like. When I was younger, I would be annoyed by perky people because I felt they were fake. Or if someone had a genuinely dumb opinion, I felt really frustrated because I wanted them to somehow feel bad. Now, I just don't care. In fact, if someone is pretty dumb but not hurting anyone, then I think they should be happy because we have enough misery in the world as it is. Overall, I feel much happier and more free because of it. I see negative people as time and energy wasters, and I used to be super negative and still am generally a pessimist. That's why internet trolls annoy me to no end. They're taking time and effort to make innocent bystanders unhappy. It's not even the stupid things they say that get me. It's the waste of time and resources for something so petty. And it's that I think they, and everyone they affect, would be happier if the trolls would just let things be. Obviously, the pettiness is part of their power, so they win in the end.
I get where you're coming from. Letting go of negative energy definitely makes things lighter. It used to bother me, too, when people were overly optimistic or had dumb opinions. But now, if they aren't harming anyone, I just shrug it off. Trolls are different though. They drain people for no reason. It's a waste of time and stops everyone from just enjoying things. Better to focus on the positive.
But some people think my hobbies are lame. Screw them. I have a decently successful career. I own my own house. I'm very happily married. If I want to obsessively watch fighting game tournaments on Twitch and go to local gatherings to play them when I have the time, then I'm going to, and I'm not going to hide my excitement for them.
It's kind of funny how people can judge your interests. I remember when my friend got flack for spending weekends gaming. But he didn't care. He had a good job and a solid life. He went to events and embraced what he loved. It's great to see someone unapologetically enjoy their hobbies, especially when they have everything else in check. It's all about what makes you happy, honestly.
Drinking, specifically going to a bar. You see, when you slide from your 20s to your 30s, you might find yourself part of bar culture. I made 2 very close friends there. Out of the hundreds of people I met and knew well enough to email, call, go to lunch with, etc. That's not how it feels, though. It feels as if each of those people that you see daily or 3 times a week or each weekend is truly a friend, someone you can count on, and someone who cares for you, your life, and your troubles. They're not. As you continue going to the same places week after week, it gets easier to stay, and the drinking increases. Eventually, you find yourself in a place where you've pissed away thousands on alcohol, you're drinking way too much, and you simply don't know what to do with yourself if it doesn't involve the bar. It's very hard to break this pattern. It changed my life when I did.
I get what you mean about bar culture. I used to hang out a lot with some friends, thinking we were tight. But it was just drinking and good times, nothing deeper. Eventually, I realized I was spending way too much, and my life was pretty much revolving around those nights out. When I finally stepped back, it felt different, but it was for the better. It made me rethink what friendship really meant.
I decided to stop wearing makeup for 6 months straight about 5 years ago. I never went back. I didn't realize how much time and energy it actually took. I also realized how closely you have to look at your face to put makeup on. When I stopped doing that every day, I stopped being so critical of my own looks.
That's interesting. I know someone who did the same thing. They said it felt freeing to let go of the routine. They started focusing on other aspects of self-care instead. Over time, they became more comfortable in their own skin. It's funny how changing one habit can shift your mindset about yourself. It seems like a pretty straightforward choice, but it really makes a difference.
When I stopped caring obsessively about my appearance. At 26, I finally became secure enough with myself to be able to go out in public without makeup on. It's been so liberating, and it's given me a new confidence I didn't have in my early 20s. I've been taking much better care of my skin, washing it nightly and moisturizing/sunscreen. I'm focusing more on having healthy skin than on tanning beds and heavy makeup as I used to, and I'm sure I'll be glad I did later on.
That's cool to hear. It can be a big deal when you start feeling comfortable in your own skin. I know a friend who did something similar. She stopped worrying about how others viewed her and just focused on her own health. Now, she gets compliments on her natural look, and it has really changed how she sees herself. Sometimes, letting go of those worries can make a big difference.
I used to spend a lot of time and money trying to remove the blackheads on my face. One visit to our /skincare addiction taught me that they weren't blackheads, they were sebaceous filaments and basically could not be removed. I've saved quite a lot of time and money since this discovery. Edit, I was trying to find the original thread, but there are so many about it. Just search for sebaceous filaments on Reddit and you'll find a lot of threads about distinguishing between them and blackheads, how to minimize their appearance, etc. The bottom line is that they really can't be removed, and the skincare industry is trying to market us products that will not work, but we think we're just not buying enough. It was disappointing to learn, but also an immense relief. I stopped spending money on so many products that I know now will not work for me.
I can relate to the struggle with skin issues. I went through phases trying every product out there, thinking they'd fix everything. Learning about sebaceous filaments was a game changer. It felt like a relief to know I wasn't wasting time on stuff that wouldn't actually help. Now, I just keep things simple and focus on what works for me. Sometimes less really is more.
I apologize for how euphoric this is going to sound, but honestly, religion. I grew up trying to be the perfect Christian girl, but that was never really me. It was like I was trying to shoehorn myself into these arbitrary rules, when I had always felt like the golden rule was kind of enough. It all just felt like a huge waste of time and energy, and by the end got so tiring. Now my life has never been better.
It's interesting how we sometimes feel pressure to fit into certain expectations, like being the perfect version of ourselves. I've seen friends go through similar struggles, trying hard to adhere to beliefs that didn't resonate with them. Eventually, letting go of that can be freeing. It's nice when people find their own path and realize what truly matters. Finding peace is what counts in the end.
Money or possessions. I earn the least amount I need to survive, and as I spend little, live off-grid, or own little, it is easy. Most people spend all their lives working jobs they hate to afford to buy things they do not really want or need. In the end, their possessions or desire for things they have been brainwashed into thinking they need controls all their lives.
It's interesting how some people chase after more stuff, thinking it'll make them happy. Meanwhile, living simply can bring a lot of peace. I have a friend who did that. He downsized everything and just focused on what mattered. It seemed like he enjoyed life more without all the clutter. Makes you think about what we really need versus what we just end up buying.
Women, in a romantic sense. It took me until college to lose my virginity to a girl who I was dating for around half a year. We had a bad breakup where she completely abused my trust in her. After that, I slowly stopped trying to appeal to women, and I deactivated my OkCupid profile. Not because I was bitter, but because I proved to myself that I was relationship able, and I no longer felt like I needed to seek one out so adamantly. I'm not saying this is a good thing. I'm still lonely, but just not sad about it. I still hope to have a relationship and start a family, but I feel like I'll just find love out of the blue one day.
It's interesting how experiences shape us. That breakup sounds rough, but stepping back to reevaluate your needs seems healthy. Not actively seeking out relationships might be a good way to find clarity. It's okay to feel lonely, yet also hopeful. Sometimes love does come when you least expect it. It's just about being open to it when the time is right. Relationships can be complex, and that's just part of life.
Being friends with the other women in my neighborhood. I used to see them hanging out together, playing with their kids, talking about wine nights. I didn't actually want to hang out with them, but I thought I should be like the other neighborhood women. Then I realized, no, I really don't have any desire to be friends with them. It feels great.
Sometimes you just go along with what you think you should want. I used to feel that pressure with the other moms in my area. I watched them bonding over playdates and wine nights, thinking I should fit in. Eventually, I figured out I was fine on my own. That realization was freeing, letting me focus on what I actually enjoy instead of trying to please anyone else.
The news. I cut the cord in 2008, and I haven't ever missed the news. I haven't seen CNN, MSNBC, Fox, or any others except in passing for 7 years. How has my life been better? Well, there was a plane that went missing a while back, and I felt bad for the families affected. I heard at some point that there was a guy who decided he was a girl, and I thought that was really cool for him that he could do that. I heard about an alarming number of police killing civilians, and some seemingly understandable uproar, too. But you know what? The sky hasn't fallen, and I'm pretty sure that my kids are going to be alright. It's not that I ignore the world. It's that I don't pay attention to the sensationalism of mainstream US news. I'm only sad because I think things would be better if everyone else joined me.
I get that. I cut cable a while back too. Just felt like I was drowning in negativity and sensational headlines. Sure, I hear snippets here and there, but I focus more on my life and the people around me. It's nice to stay out of the constant drama. I think everyone should try it, at least for a bit, and see if it makes a difference in how they feel day to day.
Don't sweat the small stuff. None of it. Here's how to do that. If you find yourself getting upset about something, ask yourself if it's something you'll remember vividly a year from now. Write down to the date. If not, just shrug it off and don't get upset about it at all. Some things you'll remember. When something legitimately awful happens, like someone you care about dies, you remember where and when and all the unfortunate details. And that's something which is perfectly reasonable to get upset about. But that parking ticket, that somewhat embarrassing thing you accidentally did in front of strangers, that idiot who cut you off in traffic but didn't result in an accident, it's actually not important. In fact, you'll barely remember a year from now, if at all.
I had a friend who used to get really worked up over little things. One day, he got a parking ticket and went on about it for days. I told him to think about it a year later. He laughed it off, realizing he'd forget all this fuss. Now, he just shrugs things off and focuses on what matters. It's refreshing to see how that mindset works for him.
Being the best. I'm a smart guy, but not nearly as smart as I used to think I was. I got so used to being the biggest fish in the smallest pond that I spent years and years of my life forsaking everything else for dominance. I had to make the most intelligent comments, get the highest scores, be the best employee. And I did. I wanted it so badly because I thought everyone gave a shit. Turns out no one gave a single shit. Outside of myself, there's nothing compelling me to drive obsessively to the top. Once I realized that and chilled the fuck out, life didn't just get easier, it became more meaningful.
I get that. I had a friend who was always driven by being the best. He used to stress over grades and jobs like it was the only thing that mattered. After a while, he just took a step back and started focusing on what made him happy instead of just trying to outdo everyone. It wasn't about being at the top anymore, and he seemed way more relaxed and fulfilled. It was a good change.
Not everybody likes you, and that's okay. Also, you don't have to like everybody. Just spend time with those people who make your day better. I have broken up friendships because they didn't make me happy. Look into your address book and make a red circle around every person that makes you happy, that lets you laugh, that you can tell your secrets and problems. Now start to spend time with the red circles and stop thinking about the others. You don't need people in your life who you don't enjoy spending time with.
Yeah, I get it. Not everyone clicks, and that's fair. I've let go of friends who just didn't lift me up. It's about surrounding yourself with people who bring good vibes. I've started keeping in touch only with those who bring a smile or good laughs. It's simpler that way. Focus on those relationships that matter and forget the rest. Life's too short for anything less.
I stopped caring about video games. I played MMOs, FPS multiplayer, RTS, nearly everything until I was 26. Then one day I just stopped. Every now and again I'll spend 30 minutes tinkering with a game, but after that much time, I get this enormous feeling of anxiety, making me feel like I'm waiting my life again. In hindsight, I think it's because I see how much of my life I already wasted and wish I could have back and subconsciously made the decision to never make that mistake again.
It's interesting how our perspectives shift over time. I think a lot of people go through phases like that. I had a friend who was really into gaming, but then one day he just walked away from it. He wanted to focus on experiences that felt more meaningful. It's like we realize there's more to life than just screens and pixels. Sometimes, stepping back can show us what really matters.
Differences between my opinions and other people's. I used to get really worked up when people liked music, books, or movies that I didn't like, or vice versa. I've come to the realization this year that their opinions are okay, too, and irritation is just exhausting. That's probably why I've stopped going to Tumblr in action.
It's interesting how our views can clash, especially with things like music or movies. I used to feel the same way, getting frustrated when people liked stuff I didn't. But over time, I saw it wasn't worth the energy. Everyone has their preferences, and it's more relaxed to just accept that. Stepping back from some online spaces can help too, like losing the urge to debate over every little thing.
After I stopped worrying about how my skin looked, honestly I felt so much better. I have really shitty eczema, and I always have to wear long sleeves to hide it, but honestly I just don't care what other people think anymore. The thoughts of insecurity still linger, but I feel better now than I have before.
That's a solid mindset shift. It's tough dealing with skin issues, especially when people can be judgmental. But being comfortable in your own skin is what really matters. It's cool that you've reached a point where other people's opinions don't weigh you down. Feeling better about yourself is a win. It takes time, but self-acceptance is key. Keep focusing on what makes you happy.
Familial relations. I have some really toxic individuals in my family who seems to have a self-centered, ghetto mindset that has ruined our relationships. I just decided to cut them off completely, and my life has not been better. I am calmer, I have a greater appreciation for the family I do get along with, and I see nothing but good things for the future.
That's a tough situation, but sometimes you have to do what's best for your mental health. Cutting off toxic people can be a big step, but it sounds like it helped you focus on the positive aspects of your family life. It's important to surround yourself with supportive individuals who lift you up rather than bring you down. You've got a clearer path ahead now.
The fact that I will most likely die. Inevitably, I always come back to this issue and it drags me down. But as soon as I manage to stop dwelling on the issue, I feel like a weight has been lifted from me and life becomes good again. It's a really annoying cycle that I've been going through lately.
It's interesting how our minds work. We can get stuck on thoughts that really don't help us in the long run. That feeling of relief when you shift your focus is something a lot of people experience. It's like a reminder that life has its ups and downs. Letting go, even for a bit, can make a big difference in how you see things. Just takes practice to break that cycle.
As an introvert, with a lot of anxiety and irrational fears, I've stopped caring/worrying so much about being around and talking to people. I'm still mindful of myself and others around me, just not to the point where I'm stressed, self-conscious, or anxious about it. This is a very recent change, and one that took most of my life so far, I'm 28, to figure out. As long as I know that whatever I'm doing or saying isn't bad or hurting anyone, then there's no need to worry that others may be thinking negatively about me. Because if they are, and I know I didn't do anything to deserve it, then maybe they're just an asshole. And that isn't my problem, it's theirs.
It's interesting how perspective shifts over time. Being mindful of your own feelings while letting go of what others think can be freeing. A friend of mine had a similar realization. For years, he was anxious about social situations, but eventually, he learned that not everyone else's opinions mattered. He focused more on his actions and intentions. It really changed how he interacted with people. Sometimes, it's about letting go of that unnecessary weight.
This will probably get buried, but whatever. Caring about past relationships and exes. It's important to remember them as the important milestones they were, but at the end of the day, they're not different than a birthday you had, a graduation, that time you broke your leg playing basketball, some accomplishment, or anything else. There is absolutely no need in looking back at a relationship with anger. It doesn't matter, it won't change anything, and you'll beat up yourself time and time again. I'm happy to say that I don't care either way what is going on with my exes. Sometimes I meet one of them, and we have a little chat, and that's fine. Sometimes I meet one, and they act like they don't know who I am and say mean things behind my back. And that's fine too. It's really not that important in the grand scheme of things.
I get what you mean. Past relationships can be just moments in life. Yeah, they shaped you, but holding on to anger doesn't do much. I see my exes sometimes too. Some are cool, others act weird or rude. Honestly, I don't bother with it. Life moves on, and it's better to focus on what's in front of you. You can't change the past, so why let it weigh you down?
Honestly, my sister. She just leads a party lifestyle without ever holding down a substantial job. Her life is full or friend drama, and always results in a huge scene that is emotionally draining. When giving her advice, she freaked out, called me a few polite names, and I cut off contact with her. It's been a few months now, and since then she has lost her driving license, crashed a car, and been through a breakup, also had some medical issues, and stayed in the ER for testing. All of which is due to her shitty lifestyle and life choices. Won't take advice and only cares about herself. It sounds awful, but for once in my life, I am able to look after myself and put my own thoughts and feelings first. Best worst decision. I feel awful, but I have learned that you can't help someone who doesn't want to be helped.
It's tough when you have a sibling like that. You try to help, but sometimes they just push you away. It sounds like you reached a point where it was necessary to prioritize yourself. It's a hard decision, especially when you see them struggle. But at the end of the day, you can't save someone who isn't ready to change. Sometimes stepping back is the only way to find peace for yourself.
I used to be so stressed about everything, debt, crap job, bad relationships, etc. Then I had an incredible experience on magic mushrooms where I realized that time doesn't exist. Everything is happening in one moment, and none of this is really real. Now I just don't worry about those things so much anymore.
That sounds like a transformative experience. It's interesting how sometimes it takes something out of the ordinary to shift our perspective. Realizing the effects of stress can be a game changer. Letting go of worry about debt and jobs can really bring a sense of peace. Life feels different when you see it from a new angle. Thanks for sharing that.
Stop caring about my school grades. Really though, 2 years ago, I decided to study philosophy no matter what, and after a bit of research, I realized that I don't need a specific grade to study philosophy and just have to pass my final exams. In Germany, we call it Abitur. Since then, I just did the minimal stuff to pass all my exams and the result. Life is good, man.
It's interesting how focusing on what you enjoy can change your perspective. I had a similar moment when I realized grades weren't everything. I shifted my focus toward learning for myself, not just for marks. It made school less stressful and more enjoyable. Sometimes, just getting by is enough, and finding that balance can really improve your overall outlook on life.
Well, I've noticed that times of my life I have no friends, I've had a surplus of money. I was lonely, but well off otherwise. But the happiest times of my life were when I had more than 5 close friends. I'm always broke, but I'm happy. I like to have both, but I oftentimes have the problems of being socially inept and caring more about others' well-being than my own.
It's interesting how life balances out like that. You can have all the money in the world, but if you're alone, it feels empty. When you're surrounded by friends, even if you don't have much, it just feels right. Social skills can be tough, especially when you're thinking about others first. Finding that balance is tricky, but I think it's worth the effort to nurture those connections.
Probably an atypical response, but I gave up on a career in music and never looked back. I was constantly comparing myself to others, losing sleep because I felt inadequate about myself as a musician and person, was fed up with the selfishness and narcissism of musicians. I know it's not all, but you can't deny this is a common trait amongst musicians, and left a toxic relationship with a bandmate. I still love music, but I don't ever miss playing it, aside from playing for shits and grins every so often, and am significantly happier and less stressed.
It's interesting how priorities shift. Giving up on music sounds tough, but it seems like you found peace in that decision. The pressure to be perfect can really wear you down. It's good to hear you're happier now, focusing on what matters to you. Sometimes stepping back is the best choice for your mental health. Music will always be there, but your well-being comes first.
I've stopped caring about whether I end up alone or not. That sounds depressing, but when I remember how nervous women made me and how many relationships I hugged to death, it makes me appreciate my lack of concern. Now I just have fun. If it leads somewhere, great. If it doesn't, who cares? It either ends or it doesn't. No use in worrying about a coin toss.
It's interesting how that shift in mindset can happen. When you stop stressing over relationships, it opens you up to just enjoying life. I can relate to that feeling of overthinking things. Once I let go and focused on having fun, everything felt lighter. Whether it leads to something meaningful or not doesn't matter as much. It's all about the present and making the most out of it.
2 things. 1. I learned to understand and respect that at any given moment, I'm doing the best that I can. I come from a long history of trauma and abuse. Those experiences made it extremely difficult to fit into society. I have PTSD, and simple everyday tasks or social interactions can trigger me. I used to get depressed and frustrated with myself for not being able to function like a normal person. 2. I learned to stop holding myself to society's standards and stop forcing myself to find happiness in the American dream. These 2 things allowed me to pursue hobbies and careers that I find fulfilling. Since then, I have been happy. It's not to say that I don't struggle with things at times, but now I don't get angry at trivial things or big things. I can be insulted, treated unfairly, etc., and I respond with genuine love and compassion. I've learned to process emotions without reacting impulsively. My close friends have seen me grow and often turn to me for advice.
It's cool how you figured out to accept your own pace. Everyone has their battles, and it takes a lot to break free from past trauma. Learning to be at peace with yourself and not chasing some ideal is important. It seems like you've found a good place to share your experiences and help others. Growth isn't always about big changes. Sometimes, it's just about how you handle what life throws at you.
That I'm not the best at anything. I used to be a perfectionist and obsessive to the point of being counterproductive. I learned that while it's hardly possible to be the most attractive, most intelligent, or what have you, it is not a total loss. I learned to be happy with challenging myself and being content with the results I get. I think even the basic fact that I'm alive and a capable human being is enough to keep me going through life.
It's pretty relatable. I've had my moments of overthinking everything, trying to be the best at something. Realizing that it's not about perfection kind of shifts the perspective. Just being alive and doing my best each day feels like a win. Embracing the journey instead of fixating on the end result makes life easier. It's nice to appreciate the little things and find satisfaction in just being.
This might not be a popular opinion, but not caring about a close person who has passed away seems like the only cure for crippling depression resulting from it. I learned this when my grandmother died after taking care of her for years. I can't bring myself to visit her grave out of the depression I go through when thinking of her.
I get where you're coming from. Losing someone close changes your perspective. It's tough to cope, and sometimes, avoidance feels like the easier path. It's like you're trying to protect yourself from the pain. Everyone handles grief differently, and it's okay if that's your way. Just remember, it's important to find a balance and not completely shut things out.
The fact that I let the right one get away. So, it looked like I was happy that my life was on the up and up with her, but truly, she was obnoxious. She had a tendency to trash my friends, and she didn't like me for me, and she attempted to change me into something I was not comfortable with. I ended it with her, and all I heard was that I let the best thing I had go. You think that much of her, you date her. I have since moved on, and I feel amazing.
It's interesting how people can see things differently. You thought you were happy, but she wasn't a good fit. Ending it must have been tough, especially with others saying you let something great go. But it sounds like you made the right choice for yourself. It's good to hear you're feeling amazing now. Sometimes letting go is the way to really find what works for you.
Bad drivers, specifically aggressive drivers. It's sometimes difficult, and I still don't always manage it, but I just started to think, what good does it do to shout or blast the horn at that guy? At best, he and I are both slightly more agitated, and at worst we end up in a dangerous altercation. I think what really exemplified this was when a cyclist came down a one-way street the wrong way towards me. I was going slowly, and he clearly saw me. I beeped angrily at him as went past, so he hit my car with his fist, hard enough to leave a dent. He was then long gone, and I couldn't follow. All I could think was he knew he was doing wrong. Beeping didn't magically cause him to reevaluate his life. All it did was piss him off, so he hit the car and it left me angry, frustrated, and dealing with damage to my car. If I just let it go, I'd have forgotten all about it by the time I got home.
Yeah, aggressive drivers can really get under your skin. I remember driving one day and a guy cut me off. I honked, but it didn't change anything. Then, a cyclist rode up against traffic right in front of me. I lost my cool and beeped, but he just hit my car. Ended up with a dent and feeling frustrated. If I hadn't reacted, I'd have saved myself some trouble. Just gotta let it go sometimes.
Facebook. If you take a step back and look at how many of the people you are friends with actually care about you, you'll realize it a lot less than the number on your profile. I deleted my Facebook 1 year ago, and I have been much happier since. I still keep in touch with the same friends I kept in touch with on Facebook. I don't understand the point of it. It's like society is reworking the meaning of quality FaceTime into quick non-verbal text.
I get where you're coming from. I had a similar experience with social media. I deleted my account a while back too. It was surprising to see how many so-called friends weren't really there. I've focused more on real connections since then. It's nice to have conversations that matter rather than scrolling through empty posts. Quality over quantity really makes a difference in how I feel day to day.
Please consider subscribing if you enjoyed. Love.